So this week we looked at 3 of Aristotle's works, categories, Metaphysics, and the Anima. These are philosophical texts where Aristotle is trying to lay out how we think about reality and life. In categories, he's breaking down how we classify things like substance, quantity, quality, relations, so that we can talk clearly about what exists. In metaphysics, he's asking the big questions like, what does it mean for something to be? What are the causes and reasoning behind the existence? And then in the Anima, he shifts to life itself, arguing that the soul isn't something just floating separate from the body in space. It's the form that makes a living thing alive. It's what causes it to be. These works, in my opinion, were meant to set up foundations for understanding reality and knowledge for us today and back then. The main questions that I felt like he was touching on in this were definitely philosophical in nature. You know, he's asking what exists, what's the nature of substance, what is life, why is it there? His big claims are, first, that substances like people, animals, things like that are the building blocks of reality. They're what started it. Second, that real knowledge comes from understanding causes and effects, not just surface appearance. It's this caused this to exist, and that's why it's here. And then third, that the soul is tied to the body as a form. It's what makes living beings what they are. He argued that by making careful distinctions, breaking down concepts logically, and analyzing how we normally talk and think about the world, we can come to understand it better. He's not just relying on myth or tradition of the time. He's really trying to reason it out step by step to help us understand it and them back then understand it better. What I really liked about Aristotle this week, or reading about it this week, is just how systematic he was. He gives us categories and framework to help us think clearly instead of getting lost in the vagueness of, oh, it's there, don't know why. It's actually it's here, this is why. He, his take on the soul being a form of the body, to me, is very refreshing compared to Plato that we learned about. Aristotle really tied the soul to biology, which feels a little bit more grounded and a little bit closer to what we believe, but still neither one of them, to me, connected that the soul is there because God created it. But at the same time, some of his claims felt a little too neat in a way. Like, why exactly are there 10 categories and not more? Why is there not less? He just kind of assumes that the list is complete just because he said so. Another weakness is that he's relying almost entirely on logical distinctions and everyday observations, which means he doesn't always dig into the details that we'd want today. Meaning, how exactly does consciousness arise from matter that he talks about? It's still a mystery even with things today like neurosciences and other studies of the body and consciousness. So I'd say his ideas are incredibly strong and a really good starting point, but they wouldn't always hold up if we were to push into diving deeper. I think it's a really good starting point, but not a good explanation or ending, especially with the complexities and different things of today's modern sciences. The 2 questions I was left with and that I wanted to leave was, first, if Aristotle is right that substances are the foundation of reality, how do we make sense of things today like virtual objects or digital identities? Are they real in his framework, or would he just consider those something completely different? And then second, could his way of categorizing reality still help us today with modern issues such as artificial intelligence, or do we just need a completely different approach?